Hi, this is Kim with www.embody-light.com, and I do hypnotherapy, readings, energy healing, Reiki, sound healing, all kinds of different things, past life regressions, Akashic Records work. So just check out my website if you'd like a session, and I will link it in the description below. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, um, this has to do with a video that I will be making that's upcoming, is there's a new trend, and I've seen twice recently, and that's kind of my clue that it's time to maybe talk about this and make a video. So the new trend is when people pass away, there's a new trend where they're not having funerals or memorial services. They're like doing nothing or end of life parties or waiting for 6 months or a year to bury the person. Maybe they have them cremated and they're going to bury the ashes or scatter the ashes. Well, what actually happens sometimes is some of those souls become stuck in the earth plane because they don't know how to cross themselves. So there's a few reasons that that can happen that I'm going to cover here. But the thing is, there can be so many reasons why a person has difficulty passing and or crossing into the next dimension. So I'm going to talk about those few things here. One of the reasons is if they pass and their vibration is low, could be because they were on hospice, because they use a lot of really heavy duty meds. Now, this isn't everybody, but for some people, their energy, their vibration is just so low, they can't cross to the other side. If somebody had a lack of knowledge of the other side, that could also be another reason. Addictions, unfinished business, a strong belief system where there's a fear of source. Other things that can happen if the person died a traumatic death, say they were murdered. Well, they often, their vibration is low, they don't really know what to do. And so a lot of them will remain earthbound and they're going to try to affect the person that murdered them, which, right or wrong, I don't know, but that's what can happen. So, or a shocking death. I knew of one case, and this was several years ago, it was one of my daughter's friends, where the 16-year-old kids just had gotten their driver's license and they were out driving around going way too fast and they crashed into something. And my daughter's friend died in that car accident, 16 years old. It was very, very sad. Well, she stayed earthbound for, I helped her cross, but it was a good 3, 4 weeks at least, maybe longer. I'm trying to remember. But this family did actually have a funeral, which is people will usually go at the time of their funeral. You know how we've all heard souls often remain for about 3 days to tie up loose ends, connect with their family, soothe their family before they cross into the next dimension, into heaven, whatever you want to call it. Well, that was because, and that's one of the things you can do, I'll talk about later. That's because whenever there's a funeral, a portal opens up for 3 days and people can cross. So if you know somebody who's having difficulty crossing, or you suspect they are, and you don't know how, or you're not strong enough to assist them yourself, tell them to go find any funeral parlor where they're having a funeral and to use that portal to cross into the other side. So, anyways, back to the story of this young girl who had passed away. The reason she stayed was because she was only 16 and she didn't want her life to end. And she actually didn't believe that she had died. My daughter, because I'm going to tell you some signs to look for, but my daughter kept having dreams about her. And in one of the dreams, my daughter said to her, her name was Sarah, Sierra, you're dead. And the spirit in the dream told her, no, I'm not. That was a mistake. Well, another thing that happened was after she crossed, my girls were teenagers, and sometimes when they would have their friends sleep over, we'd put one of those air mattresses up. They're like camping mattresses. They're a full mattress, but not like the kind you float around on the lake on. So, anyways, so I'm walking by the room, and out of my peripheral vision, that's how you're often going to see them. I saw two legs on the mattress. And so I went in there and had a conversation. I'm telepathic, so I can have conversations just in my mind with people. And I said, Sierra, what are you doing here? And she said, well, there's just so much sadness and grief at my family's. I had to get away from it for a while. So after some time, and my daughter kept having, and this was before the funeral, and my daughter kept having these dreams after the funeral, I assisted her to cross over. She was staying because her mother was so sad. That was her only child. And she just didn't want her life to end. And she actually didn't believe that she had died. So I assisted her with the crossing. So that's one of the ways you're going to recognize if somebody has had difficulty, if you keep dreaming about them, and if they look, one thing you might see in the dream, say like they did get in a car accident, you might see that, they're all bruised. They have that bruised appearance. You might see that they're wearing glasses, or if it's an elderly person, you might see them walking with a cane, those kinds of things. Because we can sometimes see spirits that have crossed, especially family members. But if they're having those things that we have in the physical world, that's a pretty good clue that's going to tell you that they're earthbound. So how would the deceased, one of the questions I had for my guides, and I'll tell you the answer I got, how do they communicate with us? First thing you want to do is make sure you're fully protected, because there are a lot of spirits out there that some are evil and some are just kind of pranking people, I guess, for lack of a better term. They think it's funny if they can get someone to communicate with them, and they'll pretend like they're your dead relative. So, one of the things you can do, you got to protect yourself. And you may or may not see them in your peripheral vision, but you may, especially if you're clairaudient, you may hear them talking to you. But another thing that can happen, because I've had like when my mother died, I heard her for probably a couple weeks talking to me very clearly. Same with my grandmother. But what I asked the guides, how does this happen? Because I've had another thing happen that I'm going to explain. How can they communicate with you? And what they do is you've got an energy field around you, because we always hear about people being possessed. That's not what happens. You have an energy field around you. And when that spirit comes into your energy field, you can often hear them. So that's how that's happening. But something I saw recently that I found very interesting and I wanted to share, and I've seen it more than once. Recently, somebody I know, it was a family member, it was a male family member, and he had a long-term girlfriend, 8 or 9 years. And they're elderly, and the girlfriend just passed and she was on hospice. Well, I wasn't especially close with these people, but I did know them a little bit. And I just communicated just telepathically. If you're good at telepathy, go ahead and do it that way. But if you're not, say it out loud. You think of the person, and as soon as you think of them, like an energetic string goes out to that person and they can join you. And I had told that person, because I knew her vibration was low when she passed, that if she needed assistance crossing, to let me know somehow. Well, this particular soul, some when they die, they're good at communicating with live people, some are not. So this particular soul was one that was not very good at it. So I didn't really hear from her. But what happened was, this was very interesting. Just an unusual set of circumstances. Somebody that lives in the same suburb that I do, that every once in a while I'll see them around when I'm at the grocery store or the bank or something, and it's another elderly person. And I don't even know their name, but we'll just have a little conversation. And I happened to see this other woman, the one that's alive, two times, and it was just uncanny because when she smiled, her facial expressions were exactly the same as this woman who had just passed away and needed help crossing. I didn't recognize it till the second time I saw her. The smile wasn't the same. The speech, that's other things. They may enunciate things differently, pronounce their words differently. It may be the inflection in their speech, the change in pitch or loudness at certain words. This woman matched all of those with the things that she said and the expression on her face. So then when I saw it the second time, I recognized this other woman who was deceased was coming into the field of this woman who's alive that I just happened to see around a couple times, and was able to, it's kind of like channeling, but the the person doesn't really even know the alive person that's what they're doing. And so another thing that could happen is you may be speaking to someone and they say something to you that's just exactly what the other person would have said. So I assisted that lady to cross over because this woman who passed, the family, she was cremated, and the family has plans to have some kind of memorial service a couple months down the road. Well, this lady could have waited for a few months, but she didn't want to. She wanted to go to the other side now. And from the other side, she's going to be able to communicate and come around her family in a different way. Because before she passed, she was still carrying all of the trauma and unresolved issues that she had in this life. So I've seen that happen other times where, because we do live on a free will planet. So if somebody doesn't want to pass and they want to stay earthbound for some reason, unless they're real malevolent or demonic, there are things you can do. Usually you're going to need a shaman or somebody that's very strong in energy work for that. And those people, you can't, because they're supposed to stay hidden. If they reveal themselves to you, you can cross them over if you know how, or you get like a psychic medium that knows how to do it, or a shaman or something. But just regular people with free will, there's nothing we can do if they don't want to cross. So I have encountered a couple of times where it was like a parent with young children, and so they thought that they would stay earthbound to watch over the children. And that would be fine and good if that deceased parent was healthy, whole, healed, and integrated. But if that parent was healthy, whole, healed, and integrated, that would be kind of unusual because they would recognize that they can do so much more for that child once they cross over from the other side, as opposed to staying earthbound. Because it's almost like Groundhog's Day. The people that are earthbound, to them, it's like the same thing over the movie Groundhog's Day, over and over and over every day. So I have had a few cases where I've worked with somebody and the parent had stayed earthbound to help the child. But what they didn't realize was that the one I want to speak of specifically carried depression that was not automatically resolved once they transitioned. And so by her being around her daughter and in her daughter's field, the daughter started to pick up on the depression and was carrying the depression herself. She didn't even recognize it wasn't her own depression. So in those cases, and again, if you're telepathic or a psychic medium, you can communicate with that soul, deceased soul, and let them know that if they cross over into the other side, they're going to be able to have a much greater impact, bigger help for that child than if they stay earthbound. Another time I saw, and I talked about this in another video, where, and this was in a dream, because a lot of my psychic work happens in dream time, but a lot happens during the day also. But I had, in the dream, we were driving along and we're behind some people that are carrying like, well, the truck is driving, and then there's a trailer, like kind of gated trailer that you would use to haul stuff. The two little kids, because they both got killed in an accident, were hanging on to the back of the trailer. And you could see they were on their way to school. That's when the accident happened, because they had their backpacks on and they were ready to go. So in the dream then, they stopped and pulled over, and I got out and talked to the children and asked them what they were doing, and they said they were looking for their mother. And I had to convince them that their mother had also passed, but that their mother had crossed over to the other side, and the only way they'd find their mother is if they crossed as well. So once they understood that, they were agreeable to go. Same with the mother that was hanging around her daughter that was causing the depressive issues. So my point of making this video is just to kind of let people know, if you have someone in your family or someone you know that you think might have trouble crossing, prayers and assisting them, because you can communicate and talk with them, even if you don't get communication back, is often needed. But if that parent, or that person, not necessarily a parent, doesn't want to go, we can't force them. It's a free will planet. So the way you're going to want to cross someone over is, first of all, you're going to protect yourself. There's videos out there on how to protect themselves. Call out to the person, either telepathically if you're telepathic, or out loud. And after you've protected yourself, the other thing you can do to get their attention is just let the memories come. Think of fond times that you had with that individual and get their attention. Then the way I do it, say a prayer. I say the Lord's Prayer, and I request that assistance for the deceased to cross over. And I ask that the person's guardian angels and loved ones from the other side that are benevolent come through to assist. Now, what I would do next, especially because I do Reiki and energy healing, and I know how to open portals myself. I will open the portal and I will ask for, quite often what I'll do is I'll ask for a loved one that they recognize or an angel to extend their hand through the portal. And once the person recognizes that hand reaching out to them, they'll take their hand and they'll travel with them to the other side. And then I close the portal myself, but I realize not everybody knows how to do that. So if you do not know how to do that, or you're not skilled in that area, what you do is you ask Source, once the person is crossed, to please close the portal. And you're definitely going to feel it. What I feel is, because usually, and this is just what happens, this isn't what I asked to happen, but usually I'll feel a tingling and a buzzing in my right hand. And that's because the deceased is actually holding my hand while we're doing this with their energy body. And you'll get real goosebumpy, and what I feel is, then once the person's fully crossed, I no longer feel the tingling in my hand, and then I'll close the portal. But if you don't have the ability to open and close portals, I would just say a prayer and ask Source to do it, because you don't want to leave that portal open. So, and again, I just want to reiterate, if you don't feel comfortable with this, and if you don't know how to do it, or are not sure, just say a prayer, ask to connect with that individual, and tell them to find any funeral parlor that's having a funeral, and that a portal will be open for 3 days, and that will assist them to cross to the other side. The reason I'm making this video is it kind of goes in conjunction with the next video I make. Well, because I've seen it, and it goes in conjunction with the next video I'll be making. It has a lot to do with contracts and what all goes into choosing a life, because there's just so many stories out there that are not actually true. So much is involved, and I will cover that in my next video. So with that being said, I love you all. Have a blessed day. My name is Kim, and my website is www.embody-light.com. And if you have not done so, please hit the like and subscribe button. Can't talk today. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.